Welcome to Humanities Values. My name is David Teachout, and with me today is Juan Lee. Mr. Lee is an author, and he has written the book Love Made Simple, which we'll be discussing today. Juan was the youngest of four children, raised by a single father, and had struggles throughout life, while also eventually joining the U.S. Air Force, where he served admirably and in defense of this country, and received multiple merits during his time in the military, including the Air Force Commendation Medal, the Achievement Medal, and Good Conduct Medal. He is a devoted husband and lives outside of Washington, D.C. And he is here to talk about his book and the principles within it. So, Mr. Lee, thank you for joining me all the way from DC area. I believe we were just chatting a bit about how you have lived there pretty much your whole life.
Yes, thank you for having me. Yeah, this has been home apart from my stint in the military, which took me around the world. Um, I left home, went to the military, and came right back home.
Nice. Well, for one, thank you for your service. I've worked with vets off and on for several years now, and it's always interesting seeing different perspectives, and that world travel pops out of your book. And so we'll get to that here in a second. But it really does. It's just that there is that kind of world wisdom that comes from getting outside of your very narrow background, which is in and of itself a lesson amongst many in your book, Love Made Simple, that people can really and should, I think, take to heart. I am not nearly as well traveled as that yet. Hence why I love talking with people like yourself to help fill that gap in. But at the same time, very much always interested in continuing to see, what else is out there. So yeah, excellent.
Until you've been outside of the borders
Hmm.
that you've been familiar with, you really don't have a real good idea as to the perspective as to how the world looks, what it really looks like. We are very much so coddled, so to
Mhm.
speak, for lack of a better word. But it gives you, I had no idea what I had no idea about. I mean, if that may, I mean, I had no idea what was outside.
Right.
And so that gave me a different perspective on even coming back home, to be honest with you. Hey, you don't know how well you have it until you've seen some other things that really don't don't compare to you
Right.
having what you
Well,
yeah.
yeah, I mean, frankly, you can use that word coddled just fine. It brings to mind, we often use the phrase as a joke, and like, oh, first world problems. And yet people generally don't dig into what that really means.
You
It
don't
is
have a comparison.
right, right. And it's not, and of course, none of this is to dismiss the very real suffering that people go through, regardless of the walk of life that they're in. But there is something to be said about really taking a look at how other people live, how other cultures deal with situations that are, to us, most of us anyway, here in the United States, um, like something out of like a Game of Thrones episode. I mean, it's just so it might as well be fantasy. We
Yeah,
have no way of comprehending it.
it's just, not to make light of anybody's situation, but all I'm saying is to get a different perspective. And to be honest with you, the book Love Made Simple,
Mhm.
it's all about a perspective. It's about changing an attitude as it relates to how we view things.
Mhm.
And things then begin to look a little bit differently when we take on a different perspective. It's an introvert. It's the ability to look inside and go like, You know how people say, it's one thing to, have your own shoes, but to be able to walk in someone else's moccasins or someone else's shoes,
Yes,
you
indeed.
know, it's just that ability to be able to shift a little bit from self and put it into someone else's perspective and go like, I wonder how they saw that looks from that perspective,
Hmm.
you know, and I don't know, I don't want to take your questions and things, but a lot of what I have gathered and things that I put in the book was as a result of those experiences,
Right.
going back and being a little bit humbling to see some things and the way other people live and the way they view life totally different
Hmm.
than how I viewed it prior to visiting or how, spending that time overseas.
Exactly. Well, and that's where, it's like you can almost, it seems like there's almost two sides of, on the spectrum. On one, it's the only experience I've ever had is my own, therefore I'm right by default. Then there's the opposite end where I've experienced so many things that nothing is right. And there's something in between that goes, we can figure out, at least better ways of doing things depending on particular contexts that speak to the kind of universal humanity that we have, which you talk about, in your book, and kind of define it as love, and as well acknowledge, though, that even if you still end up disagreeing with somebody you encounter, the fact that you can articulate, you've walked that mile in their shoes, so to speak, allows you a humility to address the concerns and those differences in a very different way than if you had never gotten out of your situation in the first place.
That's exactly right. I mean, I can't say it enough. We look at the circumstance and situation that we find ourselves in the United States right now. Just so much. I want to use a word that's encouraging versus very that's it is what it is. I mean, it's not an uprest, but
Mhm.
it's just a very unstable situation.
Right.
And the thing about it is, some people feel that it is no big deal. Some people think that we're just very short from becoming an anarchy. We just an anarchy here.
Hmm.
I mean, you put January the 6th on top of June of last year, on top of, an election that was very tense and volatile at best. Um, and you don't know what the next things is going to drop.
Hmm.
And yet we can't together collectively see others' perspectives.
Yep.
I put a post out last year or a couple weeks ago, and it was basically, can we have liberty without having um um the word was boy, liberty is what we think about as being Americans. Um, but can we do it without, boy, I'm drawing a blank here, without having equality? Can we as a nation have liberty without equality? And right now we're struggling with equality,
Hmm.
but yet we are professing that we are a nation of liberty and justice for all. We're
Indeed.
struggling.
Hmm.
We're struggling here. And I think we're almost, in so many ways, we're putting the cart before the horse.
Hmm.
Okay, we really need to, what's going to pull this thing? What's the horse behind this? I mean, in front of this, that's pulling this concept of America, when everybody doesn't see it the same way.
Right.
And so it takes a little bit of, I need to see it the way you see it, and just don't think because of the way I see it is the way that it, by default, you say it's the right way, because I don't see it your way.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and that's when you're spot on as far as that, the perspective taking. And people talk, I mean, it's almost become a as much of a joke as first world problems, where it's like, oh, we're so polarized as a nation. And you're like, and people just say it again without often really recognizing how terrible that is. Like that polarization does not help dialogue. Dialogue is the only way we are going to be able to move forward, because otherwise it's just who has the bigger stick. And as soon as you've given up conversation, you only have violence as a backup. And that exactly is going to undermine the very liberty, and therefore undermines equality, because not everybody is capable of having the same size stick. I mean, it's not going to work out that way.
And it's amazing because we're looking at it as that is the right system to have. It's
Mm-hmm.
not as though who has the stick, it's just wait until I get the stick.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's just like, okay, they got the stick right now. You wait until I get the stick.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm saying this concept here has been proven not to be successful,
Absolutely.
but yet we're repeating it time and time again, going to
Mm-hmm.
back to say that who has the stick, it makes it the right stick. Make it right.
Yeah. Yep.
I saw a post not too long ago. Actually, it was a um a YouTube video of some students in Yale at Yale putting out they were getting people to sign a a document to say that we need to rewrite the Constitution. It was, I think it was either Yale or I think it was Yale. The
Okay.
students were in Yale. They was signing, basically protesting the Constitution as it relates to the way in which it was created,
Mm-hmm.
in a way in which it doesn't. It was almost a hypocrisy. The document itself was it was hypocritical,
Mm-hmm.
and so they were like, "How can you say one thing but yet okay one another thing? Say that every person is legal, everybody is equal,
Mm-hmm.
but yet everybody's not, and allow it to be so, in spite of what you wrote."
Yep.
It's like it's time to. It was like, hey man, that I've never seen that age group take to that type of understanding and go, yeah, let's look at this. Is this what we have as our foundation? How do we build on this foundation?
Mm-hmm.
And yet we go, okay, but we have the 13th Amendment. Okay, that means that you're admitting that what you wrote was wrong. So you're going to amend it, which in turn basically says that it was right at one time to do what you said was not right. If you get what I mean,
Mm-hmm.
you saying that you have to amend something that you shouldn't have known or you should have known was wrong from the beginning, but you didn't say that it was wrong from the beginning.
Sure.
So yet you actually amending it. Okay, it doesn't change the fact that the mindset originally was okay.
Right.
And that's where I think a lot of people, we operate out of what we've been exposed to.
Mm-hmm.
And if exposure gave us the understanding that we have, how do you change what you built, what you stood on, what you stood for, when that was how you got to be who you are? Then you're saying who I am is wrong. That's a hard pill to swallow. That's a hard pill to swallow. And I think that's a part of the racial tension that we have in this country, is because some people are going to say, if you're right, that means I'm wrong. And we can't allow that to be the case.
For
It
many.
was a time and place.
Yeah.
but now we need to move on.
Exactly. Well, and that's where, it's often there's, two things there, trying to, glean is that one, there's a recognition that, I mean, let's face it, most of us, if not really all of us, if we're just being honest, come from various ideas, backgrounds, and so on that, and have held ideas that we considered at one time totally legit. We're like, no, this is accurate because we didn't really often know better, or if we did have some doubts, the context really didn't allow for it, in often. And then we grow up and we get ourselves into different situations and we find ourselves reflecting, it's the way that you organized your book, in fact, around each section, having some wisdom for, I believe it was children, adolescents, adults, and then elderly. And it's in recognizing that as you move forward in your life, you're going to ask some different questions and possibly find that the answers that you had back here may be or have been wrong in part or in whole. And part of wisdom moving forward is in one, recognizing that and creating the dynamic space of, to use your words, love, and to allow for that space to, for the personal and social growth to occur. Because without it, like if you're only going to be defined by the thing, your worst moment in life, or if you're only going to be defined by a bad idea that you once held or that you haven't given enough thought to, then frankly, we're all up a creek. I mean, so, it's having that space.
It's unfortunately that it's those that choose not to grow
Mm.
while going through this journey, that prevents the whole to be able to prosper, to be able to whole, to be able to flourish. Um, and and that's why, and the people that I've spoken to, they feel that those people are few and far between.
Mm.
But I don't know if that's the case. I really don't. And that's, again, why the book Love Made Simple is so timely, I think, because of the fact that we really need to look at each other and know that we need one another.
Mm-hmm.
We're all in a time and space that's not long, it's not going to be here forever. We're not going to be here forever. And the fact of the matter is that once this time has come and passed, what will be left for you to, that your stamp on this thing? How will people know that you were here? What was it about? It's a very temporary time.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's one of the messages that I hopefully will allow people to see the importance of understanding the value that humanity holds. That it's the only thing that's going to sustain it was here before we got here. It's here now. It's our time. But it's going to be here after we're gone.
Mm-hmm.
It's the only constant. It's how we invest into it that makes the difference, that makes the difference to the next generation, that moves humanity down the road. And if we're not seeing that, we're wasting this time. Someone did something for us that got us to this point. We didn't get from this very technological age that we're in right now without the people that blaze the courses to get here. We're just standing on the backs of those that are already been here. And what's to come, it's only going to be as we invest in the now that those that are coming in the future will be able to stand on us and push humanity into the future. That was the aha moment to know that this time and space is so temporary. It's about you and I being able to come together, not being divisive, and move humanity forward. I don't have a private agenda apart from you. I can't, because at the end of the day, history, just like you, humanity is going to be present in the future. What will humanity say about you and I now or then, based on what we've done now?
Beautifully said. No, that well, and that's what brings it. You know, you're right. It's easy to, because I've heard many of the same things from people as well, where it's like, well, where are where is this supposed majority that wants to move things forward? Where are the voices that are wanting to base things that on universal values, that want to and acknowledge that equality without liberty will not end up with anything equal, and liberty without equality ends up in the same problematic boat as well. It's like they feed into one another. You know, the ability to express oneself and to be able to follow your dreams, both as an individual and as a representative, then as this shared humanity, needs both, needs this, that then combines in this kind of general idea that you'll explore of love and that kind of universal compassion.
And you just summed it all up, because we're all looking for fulfillment.
Hmm.
And my fulfillment is being able to share my gifts and talents with you. That's it. And it's how it collectively protects and preserves humanity at the same time. That brings me fulfillment. That's
Yeah.
what that's what this opportunity to exist here is all about. Is to be able to reach my potential by being fulfilled in my potential. You know, that ability to reach my highest potential brings me fulfillment, and everything else that comes along with it. Humanity grows and progresses as a result of it. It's bringing clarity to life itself.
Most definitely. So, we've started going through this, kind of hedging around, idea of love and that universal compassion. But and I don't want to, share everything in the book, because obviously I want people to go out and buy it. But what, are perhaps like a couple of experiences that you might want to share that helped you get to this point of recognizing these truths?
It was honestly hopelessness.
Hmm.
I was let me tell you the big nugget in the book, that it was a nugget that you it's in the book, but the fact of the matter is that I was the only one in my life that didn't know it was a nugget until I
Hmm.
was 37 years old. And that was that I had a learning disability. I have a
Right.
learning disability. And at 18 years old, 17 years old, I graduated from high school, and I felt hopeless. I felt like I had no way of survival. I mean, it was very bleak in my mind. Um, I did not measure up. I was in special education, and I did not feel that I was equipped to go out into the world and fend for myself. I just didn't know how I was going to make it. Now, I and it was interesting, because I grew up in a, like I said, I grew up in a middle class home. You know, I never lacked for anything. I mean, I had everything I needed, and I saw no way for me to maintain that.
Hmm.
I was Education was not my friend. I was fearful. I had very low self-esteem. Um, and so I just did not have any hope. And it's one thing to hear, you go to church and you hear, God this and God that, and God's going to do this and God. I, I still woke up and I couldn't remember what I was learning in school. I would, my disability is a memory. My ability, I have a memory. I can't remember things. And so when they were teaching me things, I couldn't remember them as quickly as they taught it to me. As they said it, it didn't register. I couldn't put it together. It was just like, I, I have to work. Even to this day, I have to work. I mean, this is not something that I put on the shelf and go like, oh, I got it. I got past it.
Yeah.
Mm-mm. And I was 37 years old when I got tested and found out I had a memory deficiency. And so at 18 or 17 years old, I went into the military, which was a miracle in and of itself, but showed me the very principles of love and what I knew, what I found out love to be. And I'd heard about in church, but now I had seen in the military.
Mm.
It was about the very things that made me successful, that gave me self-esteem, gave me confidence, gave me everything that allowed me to be a something that gave me fulfillment, gave me peace, and allowed for me to have my needs met. It was knowing that what I needed, what I had was sufficient, it was necessary, and it was important because I was a part of something that was bigger than myself. And all I had to do was to do my part. Sounds like humanity, huh?
Yes, it does.
We all have just a part to play. And the bigger picture is humanity.
Mm.
And I learned to do my role in the military, to do my part for the betterment of national defense. See, national defense was the big picture. And I had to understand that my part was important, it was necessary, and it was sufficient for national defense. Didn't matter what my job was, it was within my ability, it was within, and it was my portion that they needed me as much as I needed them. The unit, the whole needed me as much as I needed them. If I was going to make it, if they were going to make it, we were going to make it together. And that was the mindset. So I began to see love in a very holistic way as being a part of something bigger than myself. And I just had to do my part to play that made sure that that was fulfilled for the whole.
I love that. I mean, it seems, we mentioned, before we started here, we were talking about a little bit kind of mocking social media, and which, often needs to be that way. But, the message you're saying here, just that whole thing of recognizing one's individual role for that universal benefit and betterment, and which seems in many ways counter to the message many are getting now, where it's like every individual voice is legitimate in and of itself and can now speak for the whole. That you don't really, it's not about how you might be able to serve, humanity generally. It's almost inverted. It's, let me ask you what you can give to me. And by the way, my voice simply because I'm talking is of supreme importance all the time. And it's not to diminish the importance of any individual person. It's instead to recognize that it's okay to play your part, to be a part of the movement, because without you, it wouldn't move forward anyway. So you may not be the loudest voice in the room. You may not, get your 500,000, followers and your blue check on Twitter. You might not get your YouTube, money or whatever. It's what you're doing is that even the smallest pebble in the pond is going to cause ripples. So
Absolutely.
which one, what ripples do you want to send? Because everything you do is echoing. So where do we go from there? And recognizing that that relationship constantly exists, even if we don't like it, it still exists. It's still moving forward.
And you cannot change it
Mm-hmm.
in spite of social media, because in spite of what they've tried to invert it to, invert it, pervert it, whatever the way they might want to do it, the fact is that there are elements in love that you cannot dispute. And so I don't care if you look at success in any area, in any aspect of life, you're not doing it by yourself. You can't be successful, you can't be fulfilled by yourself. It's impossible. Those people who are looking for those likes, who has all of that influence, hear me out. The reason that they have that influence is because someone has allowed them to have that influence. All they got to do is stop listening, stop stop liking,
Yeah.
and their influence is gone.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't understand. They've manipulated your uniqueness and have monetized it, and basically said you're gonna like me because I'm gonna cause you. I'm gonna make you like me. And the thing about it is that then they begin to determine what it is that you like
Yep.
by influencing you, because that's what marketing does. That's what advertising does.
Mm-hmm.
Now you've got their ears, and now I'm going to influence you to think what I want you to think, in spite of what it is that you individually want to provide or serve or give. It's like, what can I get? What can I get? What can I get? And we throw it out there that give them the ability to influence us very easily, based on the fact that they have dictated in this digital space that they have control over. It's interesting. A lot of us don't
Yes, it is.
recognize it.
Well, and that push pull of, um, you talk about it in various ways in your book as well, in that desire to serve while at the same time wrestling with the idea of, am I good enough to do so? It's like, I mean, I'm obviously one of the first people. It's easy to badmouth social media. At the same time, all we have to do is just think of major disasters or certain social conversations that are having that could not have been helped or occurred without these tools. It's like I think of, was it the hurricane? It was either Andrew or one. Honestly, it happens every time. But it's the micro giving for Red Cross and other nonprofits. I mean, $2 to $3. You think, well, what does it matter? But $2 to $3 written over the course of multiple millions of individuals on these platforms, and suddenly you're talking real influence, real
I,
voice being heard.
again, I think we talked about it earlier when we first started, and that was the fact that there's a double edged, it's two sides,
Mm-hmm.
you know, it's what are we willing to use that influence for, you know? And there goes the point where is this for the purpose of humanity? Or is this a selfish ideology, a selfish idea that I'm going to heap this on me? It's a very thin line.
Yeah.
And so it really stems from what's your motivation? Why do you want to have this influence? And we can use it and we can take it to those influencers. You know, what do you want to? Why do you want to be an influencer? What's your purpose? And I think if I can share love so that they can see the value even in their area of influence, because basically what I'm trying to do is redefine love for or success as being, peace,
Hmm.
contentment with success, and the protecting and preserving of humanity. You know, I want to redefine our mindset as to what life is all about. We struggle because we want to find out what the answer is to life that suits our purpose. But I think here we are, we can all agree that we all have the exact same purpose here, and that is to get along, okay? To be able to serve each other, to be fulfilled and being able to do that, and let and allow the next generation to write our story based on what we've provided for them in this dispensation, in this time. You know, we got to understand that this is temporary.
Hmm.
There is nothing that we can do in the sense that's generated out of selfishness that we think that we're going to be able to prevent this short time from ending or from coming to a conclusion. You know, the fact that one of the greater problems that being able to accept love for what it is the fear of death. And I don't mean to get too much into it, but fear of death is probably a very difficult thing for people to grasp with the message of love.
Hmm.
Um, I don't want to go there. I'm going to leave it there. I just say that in a sense because fear of death is I think it's a very unfair um, tool that certain people use um, to manipulate and I don't know if it's in, I'm not going to say I'm going to decline or refrain from saying it's intentional,
Sure.
but it's still being done.
Hmm.
And so as a result, makes it difficult to really appreciate humanity, you appreciate time, appreciate love, appreciate this time that we have um, in a very fulfilling way. Um, I'm going to stop there.
It's okay. I will say that reading between the lines or listening between the lines, pretty certain we're probably going to be on the same page there. But it's again that push pull. The fear of death is something that I think is just existential. It's something that we as a species just tend to have. The degree of it, the the quality, the particular nuances around what that might look like and how we address it is where you have those who are more cynical and try to take advantage, as you mentioned, all the way to on another side where they're wanting to help and are doing so in a way that ultimately doesn't. And then there's down through the spectrum again to where I think you and frankly myself are wanting to explore, which is death is as much a part of life as love is. And accepting both allows us to acknowledge and truly embrace the fact that life doesn't stop. And so much of the influencing that we're trying to do is to see how loud can we be in this one, I mean, small section of eternity. And when we start looking at love and its relation and it's the way that we relate to one another, it never stops. I mean, the ripple effects, people might forget your name, but your influence lasts way longer than that, simply because each person relates to another, relates to another, relates to another forever.
It never ends.
Yeah.
And that's humanity in a nutshell. It was in the past,
Mm-hmm.
it's in the future, and we get to influence. No, it's in the present, and we get to influence the future. It's you know we don't even know we've been doing this forever, and this influencing thing has just been relatively new. This phenomenon that's relative, but we've been doing it since the beginning of time, and we call it humanity. We I want to show that picture. I want to give that picture to everybody so that they can see it. I want to make it clear. Love made simple is making life clear, making life worth living. Okay, in the sense, and you made a statement that is so very, life continues. In other words, we are not life, we are just passing through it. We're just passing through it. We're experiencing it. We don't possess it. It's not ours. We're just passing through it. It was here before we got here. We're just passing through. What are we going to stamp it with? What are we going to do? But we've got to change the way we think, the way we look. And then we've been programmed in a way that has no clarity to it. There's no clarity to it. And we've just accepted the norm as what it is. And unfortunately, people who understand legacy have a better picture than people who don't. Because if you see legacy, that means that you know that you're temporary, that you want to pass something on to someone else. And unfortunately, if you don't understand, if you have no value, you have no worth, you have nothing to pass. But the fact of the matter is that you have the concept of legacy. You know, whatever it is you have, it's worthy of passing on. Your existence is a legacy. what you have the ability, I have the ability to invest that into the next generation based on how I possess it, how I develop it, how I present it. No one controls that but you and I. Why? What is it that we want to present? It's our legacy.
Absolutely. Well, and it reminds me of, it brought up a small section from your book, um, and near the end, and you write about how don't wait to join humanity. The legacy that you leave upon your death will impact generations to come, regardless of whether you leave family members behind. Because as a successful teen, young adult, or senior, you have touched lives. You've joined humanity at each stage of your life. You have realized that humanity is only going to be as great as the people who've traversed through it.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. What is your stamp? What are you going to be in that inevitable legacy that you leave behind? And it doesn't matter how big or small it is, it just is. We can't
It
not.
just is. Nope.
We don't get a
It
choice.
was this. It was established at your birth.
Mm-hmm.
It was established at your birth, and that's why you know the length of time has nothing to do with your legacy. It was stamped into existence at your birth. It has influence at birth. You know, I'm taking a class called Command the Stage, and it's a very eye-opening aha moment type of thing where you really dig on the inside to begin to find your story.
Hmm.
And and it's a very vulnerable space that we're in because you're digging in to get those to find your story. And it's amazing. There was a lady in it that said she had a child that died hours after it was born, and it had had an inevitable impact on her life. The baby lived for hours
Hmm.
and has had an enormous impact, not only in her in his mother's life, his father's life, but everybody else's life that they've touched, because they come from the perspective of those 5 hours with their child. You can't avoid it. It's unavoidable. 5 hours in the earth, influence forever. That's love. The ability to impact, to be able to connect one with the other from generation to generation for eternity.
I have nothing more to add to that. Well said. That's um yeah. So I know we haven't, I thought this might happen. We didn't really get to some of the original questions, but I have to say I appreciate the time here. And to be perfectly honest, I hope it isn't the last time. I think it'd be great to get together and chat again. Um,
I'm
so
available.
if is there, I know I'll have the link up on wherever this is posted for your book Love Made Simple, a guide to inner peace, contentment, and success. It can be found on Amazon, as well as many other publishers, in both
Yes.
digital and physical. um, and then I believe you have an author page, correct?
Yeah, I mean, I have a website also that you can get the ebook You can pick the ebook on the website. You can actually download it. You can have it right now. Go right to the website and get the ebook, and you can be reading it right now. Um, yeah, but in addition to that, I am the CEO and the founder of a nonprofit called Clear Journey, and it's basically the application of love in a practical sense. We teach financial literacy.
Mm.
It's basically it's the practical application of love by through financial literacy, teaching teenagers and young adults financial literacy. So by all means, if you want to help support that, also I will hopefully be having a page up soon on the website that allows you to help support that journey of being able to educate um, teenagers and young adults in financial literacy.
That's awesome. Excellent. Excellent. Okay. And I will definitely, yeah, we will definitely put that link up. And until next time, which I hope there will be, thank you. Again, this was great.
I'm only a phone call away.
I'm going to hold you to that. It's going to be
Hey,
great.
I have no problems. And by all means, if anyone wants to meet or reach out to me, you can go to my website and you can basically um, say you want to reach out with me. You know, we can have a Zoom meeting. Um, I'm very open. Everybody's journey is different. I have basically there's 7 attitudes that I share that basically give you um, the foundation for success in your life. It's about peace, contentment, and success. And these 7 attitudes lead you in the way of success. Now, all of it has to be done based on your circumstances. So the ability to apply these these attitudes at the right time is based on your journey. So if anyone is interested in more about that, you know, hit me up on either my email address at the is info at juanleetheauthor.com. That's the one that's specifically to the book. But I'm on Twitter. I'm on Instagram. You can just reach out to me and we can get together. And I'm very open to getting together on Zoom these days.
Excellent. Ah, that's awesome. All right. Well, Mr. Lee, yeah, we will end there and we'll see about setting up another time. So again, thank you.
Hey, that's great. Thanks. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.